In a therapy session, a young woman called Jade is recalling how her life is similar to the myth of Sisyphus, who is condemned to the futile task of pushing a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down when Sisyphus is about to reach the top. Her social life is quite like this. She tries to keep in contact with people, but since she's useless to them, they refuse to acknowledge her. But she tries every day. The group applauds her for her bravery. However, we can see one character, particularly the recovering addict Darby Thorne, who appears bored and uninterested. When it is Darby's turn to speak, she makes fun of Jade for referencing the myth of Sisyphus twice in different sessions and says that she's only here because it's either rehab or jail for her. As the session head is about to correct her perspective, she gets a call from Joe, Darby's brother-in-law, informing her that her mother is in the hospital after suffering a brain aneurysm and is undergoing emergency surgery. Joe tells her to call Devon, Darby's sister. As she's about to make the call, the nurse, Mikey, tells her that she is banned from making outgoing calls. Darby insists that her mother is in the hospital. Mikey replies that she claimed last week that her mother was in an accident. The hospital has to get confirmation from Dr. Fletcher, Darby's doctor, before allowing her anything. They try to call him, but he's not at his office. Darby angrily leaves. She goes to Jade's room to request her phone, but Jade is angry at her and lies about not having a phone. But Darby knows she's hiding it and threatens to reveal that she's keeping a phone. Darby calls Devon and tells her to speak on her behalf to the hospital to allow her to leave and visit their mother, but Devon refuses to bail her out of rehab and says she told Joe not to contact her. Devon forbids Darby from calling her again. With no choice left, Darby breaks into the janitor's closet to steal some supplies and breaks through the no-exit door of the hospital. As the alarms blare, Darby unlocks Mikey's car and uses the supplies to kickstart it. While driving away, she calls Devon to inform her that she'll be arriving at Salt Lake City in the morning and tells her to call her back. She drives through a blizzard on a solitary road. Suddenly, messages from Devon inform her that their mother does not want her back and that she will only make it worse. Darby contemplates returning to her addiction, but has a flashback of how she overdosed in her car while Devon and their mother tried to break through the door. She's suddenly awakened by a knock on her car. Corporal Ron Hill tells her that the interstate is closed because of a developing blizzard. She can either return back or stay overnight at a local visitor's center. She chooses the latter, but the corporal pleads to her to stay there and not drive away. As the corporal leaves, she drives towards the visitor's center. The only people inside are Ash, Lars, and a married couple, Ed and Sandy. Darby goes towards the toilet, but the ladies' section is under construction. After confirming that no one's inside, she goes into the men's section. Inside, she becomes sad after seeing Devon's message and contemplates doing powder again, but decides not to. Once outside, she tries to distract herself with coffee, but realizes that she isn't getting any cellular signals or Wi-Fi. Ed returns from outside saying that he managed to get 1 bar of signal near a tree, and Darby goes there for a signal. She suddenly hears a screaming and thudding noise and ends up discovering a kidnapped girl in a van belonging to one of the people inside. She tries to open the door, to no avail, takes a picture of the truck's license plate, and promises the girl that she'll help her. Suddenly, she notices someone looking at the truck and hides. While pretending to be looking for a signal, she enters her car and dials the police but finds no service. She sees someone behind her car and arms herself, but it is Ed looking for service again. She returns inside, now suspicious of everyone. Sandy invites Darby to her table, and everyone introduces each other. Ed suggests playing a game of cards to pass the time, but Lars suggests playing a game of bullshit or cheat, where players are encouraged to lie about the cards they have played. While Lars is explaining the rules, Darby is still distracted by the thought of the girl in the truck. While they're playing the game, Darby questions where everyone is from, suspicious of Lars since he's the person acting most suspicious. When Ed reveals that he was in service and served in Iraq, a terrible battle, Lars immediately asks if Ed killed someone. Ed jokes that he lost count. Lars reveals that he's from Battle Mountain, in the middle of Nevada, and Darby realizes that the truck's license plate is from Nevada. To add fuel to her suspicions, Lars throws his cards in a fit when he's angry, making the entire group awkward. Darby uses this opportunity to hide in the women's toilet and tries to call the police, to no avail. She sends them a text about Lars's truck's make and license plate, but her message doesn't go. She breaks a hole in the wall to go back outside. She stealthily makes her way to the truck and breaks into it. Darby talks to the girl, promising to save her. Unaware of her presence, Lars enters the van to heat it for her, and it's revealed that her name is Jay. Inside, Ed grows suspicious of Lars's strange behavior. Darby notices that Lars is armed. Lars suddenly exits the van to bring Jay some food. Realizing the danger, Darby tells Jay that she will return to help her and goes back inside the cabin through the hole in the wall. When Ed notices Lars taking snacks in the van, he questions if he's having a party there, but Lars says he left his phone outside. Darby leaves a box cutter in the truck for Jay. When Lars returns to the van, he accidentally drops his keys and notices a set of footprints retreating into the forest. He opens the truck but finds Jay still inside. When Darby emerges in the bathroom, Ash appears at the door to offer her vocal support about her mother, but Darby pulls him inside. Lars suddenly appears in the toilet, but Darby pretends that she and Ash have been kissing, prompting Lars to leave. Darby tells Ash about the girl. Ash agrees to help her but tells her to wait for the storm to pass, but Darby says that Jay is sick and could die out there. Ash tells her to go outside to bait Lars and to allow him and Ed to ambush Lars, but Darby reveals that Lars has a gun. Ash decides to arm himself with a nail gun. When Darby leaves the visitor center this time, Lars is clearly nervous and immediately follows her. Darby removes the gag from Jay's mouth, but Jay immediately mentions that not one but two men abducted her. She looks outside, only to discover that Ash is Lars's brother and an accomplice in the kidnapping. Ash takes the gun from Lars and opens the truck, but Darby has already left. Meanwhile, Ed contemplates going outside, but Sandy tells him to relax. Darby is hiding in the woods, but she makes a noise, alerting the two who chase her. She enters the toilet through the hole, but Ash finds her. He takes her cell phone, deletes her messages to the police, and inquires about her sister's messages, which actually reveal that Darby's family does not want her back. Meanwhile, Ed asks Lars about Darby, but he mentions that she could be outside trying to find a signal, which makes Ed suspicious since she did not leave through the front door. He goes outside to investigate. Meanwhile, Ash questions Darby's past, revealing that her father was a war veteran who ended his life from trauma, and Darby was involved in drug abuse, which pushed her away from her family. Ash reveals to Darby that Jay's father is rich and intends to return her unharmed once he receives the ransom money. When Darby mentions that she's sick and could die, Ash agrees and reveals that Jay has Addison's disease, which can cause an adrenaline overdose if she becomes too stressed. While Ash is threatening Darby, Sandy appears to talk to Darby alone. As Ash is leaving, he threatens to kill her and everyone else if she informs Ed and Sandy about Jay. Sandy asks Darby to tell her if something is wrong or suspicious, but Darby insists that everything is fine. Meanwhile, Jay uses Darby's box cutter in the truck to cut her restraints. The group gathers once more, and while Ed is questioning Darby about her father's service, since he himself is a Marine, Ash reveals that Darby's father finished himself, which angers Ed since it wasn't his story to share. While they're talking, the three of them notice that Jay has cut herself free and is running into the woods. Ash sends Lars after her. When Darby rushes to the toilet, Ash goes after her, pretending to apologize. In the bathroom, Darby attacks Ash, but he gains the upper hand. During the fight, Ash drops his keys. Lars goes through the hole in the wall and stops his brother from strangling Darby. In the struggle, Darby takes Ash's keys. Ash and Lars force Darby to help them look for Jay since Jay will return for Darby. They follow Jay's footprints through the snow. During their search, the two mention Uncle Kenny, and Darby asks about him. He is Lars and Ash's foster father, who adopted them and taught them how to kidnap and run a human trafficking ring, while Lars ignorantly believes it to be finding them better homes. Darby uses a torch to blind the kidnappers and runs away, falling down the hill and knocking against a tree. Ash fires his firearm, alerting Ed and Sandy. Darby hides behind a tree. Ed and Sandy find Jay unconscious in the snow. The two try to flank her, but Darby sends them in a different direction by throwing the torch. Ed and Sandy take Jay inside and try to warm her, and Sandy discovers that Jay is in an adrenal crisis. Darby goes inside the cabin and tells Ed and Sandy about the kidnappers. Ash and Lars appear, only to discover that Darby is inside with Jay. Ash threatens to shoot everyone, but Ed locks the door and pretends he has a gun with which he will shoot Ash should he attempt to break in. Lars mentions Jay's medication, which gives Ash the idea to negotiate, telling them to return Jay to him, and he will leave with Jay while saving her life. Though Sandy agrees with it, Darby says they can't leave, as she has their keys. Ed promises to give them the car keys if they give Jay the medicine she needs to survive. Ash and Lars go to their van but come out with a petrol can instead. Ed tells Darby to hide the keys to prevent Ash and Lars from leaving, and even gives Darby his keys. As Ash and Lars cover the cabin in petrol, Sandy tries to convince Ed to give them Jay, but he refuses to comply. Meanwhile, Darby hides the keys. Darby returns after hiding the keys and arms Ed and herself with tools. Ash lights a match and threatens to burn the place. Jay wakes up and identifies Sandy as her maid. A flashback reveals that Sandy was treated horribly by Jay, made to dance for her amusement on the threat of getting fired for smoking weed. Sandy helped Ash and Lars take Jay from her home under the agreement she'd be ransomed, unaware of the truth. She agreed to meet with the kidnappers to give them Jay's medicine. In the present, Sandy reveals to Ash and Lars that Ed doesn't have a gun and pepper sprays Darby to incapacitate her. Ed is disappointed in her and asks why she did it. Sandy reveals that she did it for her family, as all of their savings had been burned through and they were barely surviving. Ash holds Ed hostage while he gives Sandy the medicine to inject Jay to save her life. Afterward, Darby reveals to Sandy that Ash and Lars intend to traffic Jay. Sandy is horrified and begs Ash to ransom Jay instead, arguing that Jay's parents will pay them double what the traffickers are offering. However, Ash explains that it isn't about the money. The traffickers will come after them if Ash and Lars fail to deliver. Sandy tells them to leave now that they have Jay, but Ed doesn't have the keys and refuses to allow Darby to look for them. Realizing that Darby is the only person who knows where the keys are, Ash kills Ed and Sandy. He then uses a nail gun to staple Darby to a wall. Lars, who is pepper sprayed by Sandy, is suffering, and Ash takes him to wash his face but threatens to kill Darby should Jay move. Jay tries to free her arm, to no avail. She tries to reach a hammer nearby, but it's too far. She asks Jay to help her retrieve the hammer, but Ash and Lars appear, asking about the keys before she can free herself. Darby lies that she doesn't know, but her phone receives a text message. Ash reads it and informs her that her mother has died. Another text reveals that Corporal Ron is on his way to the cabin. Desperate, Ash threatens to hurt Jay by nailing her hand, and Darby reveals where the keys are. Ash gives his gun to Lars before leaving to search for the keys. As Ash searches for keys, Darby notices that Lars is distracted by nervousness and tells Jay to turn off the lights. When Jay stands up, Lars tells her to sit down, but Darby insists that he's not like Ash and wouldn't shoot a little girl. As Lars is distracted by Jay, Darby snorts the powder to numb the pain receptors and pulls the nail out of her hand. Ash finds the keys. With Lars distracted, Darby knocks him out with the hammer and takes his gun. During a standoff with Darby holding Lars hostage, Jay hits Ash's nail gun with a hammer, thus shooting a nail in Lars's forehead. As Ash rushes to comfort Lars, Darby and Jay run outside to make their escape. However, Lars falls face down to his death. Now angry, Ash punctures their vehicle using the nail gun before they can escape. He then sets the cabin on fire. When Darby gains consciousness, she sees Ash approaching her, but Corporal Ron arrives. Ash pretends to be the victim of the accident, but Darby shoots Ash from the vehicle. Ron sees her as a threat and shoots Darby in the abdomen, not to kill. Ash stretches out to take her weapon and shoots Ron. He climbs on top of Darby and puts the gun to her head, but the gun is empty. Realizing that Ron is still alive, he goes to finish the job with the nail gun and picks his gun up. Before he can shoot her, however, Darby uses a screwdriver to puncture his neck, killing him. Darby then drags herself to Ron's radio to call for help. In a flash forward, Darby's sister Devon visits her in the rehab center and the movie ends.